Give me proof that blacks are affecting, whites are affecting black people in a negative way. What are they doing to affect blacks in a negative way?
Well, if I've got to give a black man uh, so-called proof about the effects of systemic racism in the United States of America, its current and its historical effects on African
Where's the proof of it?
Then that is problematic.
Where's the proof, Bishop?
The proof is evidenced
Not to me.
in negative status indicators on the African American community throughout our entire history. The proof is the disparate treatment of African Americans by law enforcement. The proof is in the fact that in employment, that all things being equal, the wages of a black person are going to be lower than the wages of a white person who has the exact same experience and qualification. The proof is in the fact that African Americans who are qualified to enter certain schools are accepted at much lower rates than their white counterparts.
Okay,
and I can
let's deal with
disparities in American society that affect African Americans all day and all night long.
Bishop, you're going on too long. I know, but you're going on, and it's ridiculous.
But you asked me the question. I'm trying to answer the question.
Give me a quick example of law enforcement affecting black people in a negative way.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. When you talk about law enforcement affecting African Americans, it is absolutely proven by the statistic that racial profiling negatively affecting African American exists. It's clear. Two issues that need to be addressed: racial profiling and the police use of excessive force. Both run, first of all, afoul of the U.S. Constitution, but they are common practice.
So let me ask about the racial profiling
to the African American community.
If black people were, if 77% of black children are born out of wedlock, if black men and women were getting married and raising decent children, which would also create a decent community, would the cops have to profile black people?
If they were getting married and raising decent children, I'm not understanding your question, because I think children are innocent. And I think whether a child is born within
You're not answering the question again.
If a child is born within the confines of a marriage, or if a child is born out of the confines of a marriage,
you're not answering my question.
It's not the indicator of whether or not that is a decent child. And whether or not a child comes from a home
that's not what I asked you.
Or whether they come from a situation where they are not married, it does not give the police the right to racially profile them. I think your premise that children being born out of wedlock is the problem that faces that spurs or is the catalyst for racial profiling is completely off base.
If blacks had raised decent children,
blacks do raise decent children.
They don't.
They do.
They do not.
They absolutely do.
So let me
just throw the caveat in here.
Most blacks are born out of wedlock.
White folk raise children that join gangs, that sell drugs, that commit crimes.
What does that have to do with black people?
That you just described, yet they are not profiled like the African American community are.
Let me ask. I'm asking you.
Every single community would raise their children within the confines of marriage. But at the end of the day,
but the black people, not all, but most.
When black people are racially profiled, the police don't know what kind of home they came from.
Bishop.
The common denominator is the color of their skin. That's the reality of it.
Bishop, hey.
Yeah.
Are blacks, most blacks, not all, but are most blacks suffering due to racism or the destruction of the family and the lack of moral character?
I think that African Americans suffer because of the destruction of the family. I also think that they suffer because of systemic racism in America. It does not have to be one or the other. It can be both and. But I also reject the notion that that the construct of an African American family is a a rationalization for systemic racism in America or being racially profiled by law enforcement.
Where is your proof that racism exists?
Reverend, you asked me this question a little while ago, and I rattled off.
That was just a bunch of.
Wait a minute, I rattled off the disparities in the African American community,
but those were not proved.
That are a result of systemic racism.
That
and then you interrupted me and told me not to continue. And I said I could be here all day. Rattling off how racism affects African Americans, but then you turn around and you ask the same question that you didn't want me to answer a while ago.
Hey, I asked you for proof, but you gave me none.
I absolutely did.
One more segment. Hold on.
You are proof that racism exists in America because of the internalized oppression and self-hatred that you have that causes you to say there is no racism in America. They did a job on you, brother.
Calm down, man. Hold on.
I'm just passionate about what I'm talking about. There's no calm down.
I say there's no racism, that our battle is a spiritual battle. God said that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spirits and principalities. And
I said that racism is an evil and wicked spirit that has infected mankind. And so it's part of what we're wrestling against. It's part of that spiritual battle.
Against spirits and principalities and wickedness in high places.
Absolutely. And racism is part of that wickedness that's in high places.
Why are you not putting him on hold? This man is wasting time. And
Matt Barrow's put me on hold.
This word racism had been made up by race hustlers in order to keep black people in anger, in a state of anger, which is a fallen state, and to intimidate white people so you can get free stuff from them.
Intimidate white folks to get free stuff? Are you serious?
Done by black preachers, black politicians, white liberal, godless politicians.
So now they want to cut me off because he doesn't like the answers that I'm giving.
Teach the truth to black people and not keep them angry.
Well, first of all,
some sexism, homophobia.
Now he just told me my answers are too long, but he's going on this rant.
Days when boys were boys and men were men. Why don't you teach the truth to the people, to the blacks? If you are a man of God. So
can I answer as long as it took you to ask the question? Because you just laid out a bunch of right-wing talking points and malarkey that is indicative of the institutionalized racism that you suffer from and the self-hatred that you have towards your own people. To say that I'm trying to answer your question, Reverend. To say that racism has been made up by race hustlers. How can you say that a people that have suffered in America from the time they were illegally brought here through the horrible crucible of slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, to the current systemic racism that affects African American people? How can you say that it was made up by black folk to get free stuff from white folks? That is the most ridiculous analogy that I have ever heard in my life, and it is absolutely despicable that a black man who purports to be a man of God, that's a hustle right there. For you to say that racism doesn't exist in America when anti-black racism has been proven out in study after study in education, in employment, in racial profiling by the police, in the criminal injustice system, and in just about every other facet of American life. And for you to sit here and say that racism is a hustle? Come on, man. Are you serious?
Men were real men instead of beta men. If they got married and if they loved what was right with all their heart, soul, and might.
Black men are real men. I deal with real black men every single day. I deal with real black men every day. I deal with black men who take care of their children. I deal with black men who love their communities and love their God.
Respect for one another. Why were they better off then, prior to the civil rights movement, than they are today?
Well, that's a false premise, first of all. No, wait, brother. Are you gonna let me answer the question? Because you go on 10-minute talking sprees. No, I can't give you a short answer after a 10-minute question. So first and foremost, I deal with good black men every single day. Black men who love their families, black men who raise their children, black men who love their God, their church, and their community. And for you to stereotype all black men, for you to stereotype all black men is worse than when white folks stereotype us on a day-by-day basis. I say that they've done a job on you for you to sit here and purport that black men all fall into one category of irresponsibility. So your whole premise is flawed to begin with.
Not all, but most.
Most? Yeah, you give me proof of that. You give me proof because studies have said that black men are more involved in the lives of their children statistically than white men are. That black men are more involved in their religious communities than white men are. So you give me the proof that they're not, because you just threw out an arbitrary figure and said most. Where's your proof of that?
Blacks are begging and whining for affirmative action and all that kind of crap from the white man. And
you've proven nothing. You haven't proved. Once again, you're throwing out racist right-wing talking points. You have not proven anything.
Bishop, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, y'all. Well, I'm off. This guy is the quintessential example of someone who is infected by self-hatred.
Because of the music. Thank you, sir. I gotta go. Back in a moment. I'll take your call.
He is somebody who is full of self-hatred. Somebody who is a tool of the right wing. And when you talk about race hustling, Jesse Lee Peterson is the epitome of a race hustler because he gets paid to disparage his own race. He gets paid to say negative things about black people and gets applauded by the white community because of the fact that he speaks negatively and in pejorative terms about his own people. So if you ever really want to talk about a race hustler, it is black people like Reverend Peterson who parrot the talking points of the racist religious right and those that are infected by white supremacy about black people on a day-by-day basis. And that's the ultimate race hustle. That we will give you a radio show, we'll give you a book deal, we'll give you money. If the only thing you need to do is say negative things about black people so that we can point to you as our token black when we're talking to other black people about the racist things that we think about them. And we can say, see, why don't you listen to Jesse Lee Peterson? Why don't you listen to Larry Elder? Why don't you listen to Ben Carson? And so over and over again, we see these bootlicking coons who sit around talking negative about black people. And the reason why I went on the program was because every now and then you need somebody who can speak the truth to these cooning, buck dancing pseudo black men who have found their niche in hating their own people. Do me a favor, share this with your followers. Share this on your page on Facebook Live. Share this with your followers on Twitter, and let them know that the bishop went on with the cooning Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson this morning. I thank y'all for tuning in and for checking me out this morning. All right? Peace and blessings to you.